Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Dun & Bradstreet and SAP, I welcome all of you to this thought-provoking webinar based on a very relevant theme, CFO Grandmasters Club Virtual Summit, Building Finance and Business Resiliency with Technology. Many pressures are crowding in on business leaders today. There are plenty of concerns at a global level, which include increasing trade tensions around the world, rising debt on company balance sheets. Actually, there's no end in sight to political uncertainty, challenging national and international institutions as well, just to name a few. These increasing, intertwined, cyclical risks come against a backdrop of long-term forces, from demographic trends to technological changes that are disrupting the current business models, and the list goes on. Having said that, for business leaders, the pressuring or the pressing question, therefore, boils down to how to prepare for a potential recession and make their companies more resilient. That is, have the ability to anticipate and react adequately to shocks, adapt to new circumstances, and capitalize on threatening events as well. And therefore, at the end of the day, the critical questions that arises in their mind is what drives business resilience? Interestingly, corporate and academic interest in conceptualizing and understanding what drives organizational resilience has grown steadily in the recent years. Now let's look at the theoretical part. In theory, in order to survive a downturn and turn the unfavorable conditions to their own advantage, business leaders would need to master the ability to anticipate possible future developments, create alternative action plans, estimate the availability of a broad set of resources, and leverage external network of relationships. Now, specifically, if I have to look at CFOs today, they have to completely focus on increasing in the use of advanced technology to improve efficiency, establish new credit facilities, diversify finance resources, increase the focus on customer margins, master or reconsider strategic acquisitions, reevaluate or adjust supply chain arrangements, build a pool of flexible workers, and the list goes on. But the thing is, all this is in theory. However, personally, I believe that all the business leaders today here have been at a ground level and understand what the truth is. When the rules of the games have changed, obviously, each one of you out here has encountered a lot more than we can imagine. And therefore, I welcome each and every one of you and cannot wait to listen to your words of wisdom, because at the end of the day, real stories work, and we are all ears to listen to your side of the story. With this, I thank you and welcome all of you again. And over to you, sir. And that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Acharya, for your welcome note. And now we move on to the next session plan for today. We now move on to the fireside chat on the topic. I would like now to invite Mr. Sunil Bohra, Group CFO, Minda, and also Mr. Rohit Bahade, Chief Financial Officer, SAP India. Over to you, Rohit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you guys able to hear me loud and clear?
Yes, Rohit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The last few weeks and months have been extraordinary and unprecedented. The disruption caused by the pandemic has been sudden, all-pervasive, and caused severe impact to lives and economy. CFOs are key to ensuring that the organizations not only survive the current crisis, but thrive in the new normal and show resiliency in business. One such customers of ours that we have the privilege of having us today is Minda Industries, and we have Mr. Sunil Bohra, CFO of Minda, who has joined us for this chat. Thank you, Sunil, for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure. Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and namaste.
Hi. Sunil, let me begin by congratulating you. I just heard that your company's rights issue went out successful, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you very
much. Let me begin by asking you a question. We have had our ups and downs in business and our personal lives. How do you see the current situation? Does this redefine the CFO's role?
Yeah, absolutely right. So every uncertainty we know that brings it with a lot of challenges, which I'm sure most of the professionals look forward to, as these are the times which teaches you the most to innovate, excel, and come out stronger and shine. While, as you mentioned, Rohit, definitely there are ups and downs in both business and personal lives. However, the current times are unprecedented and in the lives of people in the world today. The current situation demands extraordinary efforts, not only to ride the rough waters, but also to keep calm and, most importantly, take care of people's physical and mental health. Considering these aspects, the role of CFO undoubtedly gets wider, and the CFO not only need to look after the financial health and liquidity of the organization, but also need to consciously focus on other aspects and not only rely on his human resources team. We are in uncertain times wherein various aspects and scenarios need to be considered, and the CFO need to ensure the organization is ready for that. For example, while there were sudden lockdowns across the globe, the priority was cash flow and cost management, and suddenly we are experiencing a good demand, and no one know how much of that is a pent up demand. This changes the mindset and the direction of the organization too quick, right? So from smooth operations to a lockdown, then sudden ramp up. So there are like cyclical impacts which you have to make your organization weather that. However, no one knows how long this sudden demand growth which we are seeing will last. So therefore, the CFO need to constantly ensure he is able to drive the organization and make it ready to shift gears as situation demands. As you know, Rohit, over the years, CFO role has consistently been expanded, and situations like these amplify such transitions of CFO from being a finance custodian to a strategic thinker and someone who can naturally step into the shoes of a CEO should the situation arise. So definitely there are a lot of things to do, and a lot of areas gets encompassed into a finance professional. So this does definitely mean some addition, but what the point I'm trying to say is that even before this pandemic, we all know that the CFO role in last decade or so has been consistently evolving, and this pandemic has even sort of thrown up that reality that yes, CFO is no longer a custodian or a guy who is just responsible for finance of the organization. At the end of the day, the success of the organization, the growth of the organization, the CFO is actually the right hand of the board of the CEO and someone who is actually ready to drive the organization should the need be. And I think a couple of days back, if I remember, I also read an article, I think it was yesterday or day before, that a lot of startups actually who are driven by promoters or the entrepreneurs or the idea generators, now they are sort of hunting for the CFOs because now they don't know or they are not that well prepared how to ride these rough weathers.
Very true, very true. And if I'm a big fan of cricket, and if I give you an analogy from cricket, the current crisis, navigating the current crisis is like playing a T20 one day and test cricket at the same time. So you have to
Absolutely,
adjust and adapt, right? Which is sometimes challenging, but it's fun as well.
absolutely.
Moving on, we have seen a lot of our customers innovating during the current crisis and really finding opportunities to bring in process efficiencies. We are hearing things like companies adapting to zero-based budgeting and closely monitoring cash flows and so on and so forth. As part of Unobinna Group and leading the business as a CFO, what has been your experience?
So definitely, Rohit, while we all do focus on our health, the role of CFO is to ensure organization health is stable and strong. I believe today's CFO continuously works on bringing in process efficiencies, and zero-based budgeting has become a norm. I'm sure, Rohit, that it's something you also must have experienced, as most of the industries nowadays do face cyclical businesses, cyclical patterns, ups and downs. Only shift during the current ongoing crisis is that it proves the need of such actions being continuous and not wait for such situations to give a wake-up call. Considering that we do continuously focus on all these aspects and ensure we keep the organization healthy and able to withstand such storms. Yes, these situations does need organization to shift focus a little bit more closely on cash flows, which is what we also did once the lockdown was imposed. We also approached all our service providers, consultants, etc. for support, and I'm pretty happy that everyone responded very positively. We formed small crack teams to drive cost reduction in various areas. I'm sure most of organizations did, and it's a pretty standard thing to do when you face any uncertain times or any downhill in terms of your business. At the same time, what was critical was how do we ensure the safety of our people and also ensure the manufacturing facilities are kept safe and in operating condition. Now, to do that, what we did immediately when the lockdown was announced, we actually formed small teams, like 10, 12 people team with your safety, maintenance, housekeeping, catering, everything. You formed people, small teams who are housed in all the plants 24 by 7. So we have something like 60 odd plants across the globe. So all those plants which were under complete lockdown, they were manned 24 by 7, and people have not seen their families for 1.5 months, right? They could not go out. Nobody could come in. So I think that was the scenario. And what it did was it ensured the plants were kept properly maintained and in operating condition. So when the thing started, we were able to start smoothly, and there were no hiccups. Now suddenly we are experiencing a jump in demand, which, as we discussed, it part may be due to pent up, and part due to people's need for safe transportation. We all know it is, be it me or you or anybody, we all try to avoid exposure, and I think that's what the tendency we are seeing across the globe, that people are actually trying to avoid exposure of being getting infected or being exposed to the virus, and rightfully so. Why not, right? Who wants to be getting infected and have the need for hospitalization, etc., etc.? And I think this is what is something which is driving at least auto sector, and we believe this momentum will continue for some time, because nobody knows when we have a vaccine or when we see things sort of shaping down. Even if you have something, I think it will take time. So hence, another challenge which we faced was to be able to meet the sudden rise in demand, which was also handled in a very, very planned way. And I'm pretty happy that we are able to meet the sudden increase in demand. Now, here again, what we did, we actually formed our teams. And just to take a step back, I think what is important is to understand the auto industry. The backbone is supply chain, because there are hundreds and thousands of parts which goes in every vehicle you produce. Now, if I have to give an example, a simple switch which you see for a car or a two-wheeler which we make, a switch business has got more than 4,000 parts. Now, if you don't have a smallest part or a spring, you can't manufacture that component. So the entire supply chain end to end has not only to run smoothly, but also need to prepare itself for sudden jump in demand. So they also need to scale up, right? Another challenge which I'm sure industry faced was the manpower. People actually drove back to their hometowns, rightfully or thankfully, because there's nothing much to do. After some time, people have started coming back. So I think all in all, I think it needed a lot of efforts, and it ensured that everybody played as a team, play its role. So finance maybe played its role in terms of financing, holding cash, making sure it's appropriately spent. Uh, Somebody else in maintenance made sure plants are kept right. Somebody in HR made sure that people are available to run the operations. Somebody in projects needs ensure that the development goes fine. So I think there are a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, when things are looking good, I think if you sit back and think the kind of pressures which everybody has faced in last 6 months, I think they have been humongous. So I think these are all part of life, and I'm pretty happy that where we are and things are actually looking better.
Great point, Sunil. In fact, if you really look at the stages when there is a financial crisis or a pandemic, there are typically four phases. People talk about survive, revive, thrive, and sustain. I truly believe that we are probably somewhere between reviving and thriving. But again,
Yeah.
it is very important for us to plan for the near term. At the same time, be very guarded in terms of what's really going to happen. So completely echo your points on that one. Let me move on to my next question. We have also seen customers giving more thrust towards digital technologies to bring in automation and differentiation in the current period. Personally, we at SAP have been taking a very collaborative approach with our customers to identify these technologies interventions and help them. What has been your experience with utilizing technology in the current times?
No, absolutely, Rohit. I think we are all living, in fact, we are connecting through technology, right? Earlier, we used to have all our physical conferences, seminars, and actually, we used to have to spend half a day or something to go travel, participate, come back, etc. Now, you can actually finish in half an hour or an hour without spending any time on travel. So, now coming back, absolutely, it is the technology which has helped organizations stay connected. and continue with business activities even during the lockdown. And it's something which has helped the world get up and not walk up, but be able to run if required. Even today, when there are restrictions, we have been able to smoothly run the business primarily due to automations and technology with a lot of dashboards, ERPs, compliance tools, engineering and product development tools, etc. I think our teams have been able to work from home and continues to do so, right? We all know the pandemic had taught us how to do desk roles or what we call the staff jobs without being physically present in the office. Now, how to do business without travel? I think this is something which has been a new way of working. Doing digital roadshows, fundraisings. Who would have thought that you would complete hundreds and thousands of crores of fundraisings without even meeting somebody physically? Everything is happening digitally. So I'm pretty sure that even post-pandemic, this will change the way we do and operate businesses. The organizations which were more digital and more automated were able to run the businesses offline very smoothly and remain connected with the teams, right? So all in all, I think you have to work on technology not only on these times of I would say pandemic, but it is a continuous journey. It is not that you do a knee-jerk reaction because there is a need, you try and automate things, put ERPs, put tools, put dashboards, etc., etc. I think this is a continuous journey which every organization lives with, and the guy who is more aggressive in automation, I think, has benefited the most. Like even today, if I see in our organization, most of the staff roles, right, we are having partial staff in office because of maybe the government guidelines or whatever to minimize the connect. But you don't actually realize nowadays, after 6 months, it has become a habit. You don't realize or you don't have a fear whether this work will happen, this work will not happen. Will somebody have offline connectivity of SAP? Whether somebody will be able to transact the processes? So everything is happening seamlessly because of automation. So I think it has become a new normal, and I'm sure it is here to stay, and I'm sure it will change the way we work in coming years, even post-pandemic.
Thank you, Sunil. Again, thank you for giving your point of view on these points. I must say that when you were talking, it was very similar to what we in SAP have encountered as well. And the actions that we have taken are very, very similar to what you have taken. Thank you. With that, Keval, let me hand it over to you for the next
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. That was a great bit of talk. Thank you, Sunil sir, for sharing your thoughts, and congratulate you
Thank you.
again on the successful rights issue with Minda Industries. I hope
Thank you.
your organization keeps on growing, and with that you as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your participation. Now we will now transition into maybe something that uh, we can share with you as an SAP's point of view, right? And basically what we have done with our customers during this particular period, right? So if we look at what Sunil sir and Rohit actually talked about, is that we are all getting used to the new normal, right? And the new normal is also changing the way that we are working, or changing the way that we are approaching our processes, as well as our demands with our partners, right? So how do we now have a better way of dealing with finance processes, capital, and risk effectively with some of the technologies that SAP has to offer? So definitely, CFOs have been, uh, you know, struggling, or maybe even, getting a thrill from the current crisis in terms of maintaining that business continuity and emerging stronger out of these scenarios. If we look at the overall impact, right, and I think Sunil sir had explained from an automotive perspective. If we go more generic, even the global trade has impacted a lot. The management of the working capital has become even more crucial. And in the times, doing those quarter end close as well as monthly closes with the entire team being offline is something also that has come in, and uh, the other part which Rohit and Sunil mentioned was around zero-based budgeting and really planning for the scenarios that are going to come in, and planning for all of those scenarios and making sure that the execution is as per the plan. So these are some of the business impacts, if I may say so, for the CFOs in the current times. This has resulted into instability in terms of revenue, liquidity, carrying out the international trade, and the remote staff working. So if we take point by point, right, the first point, and cash is basically the blood for business, right? It runs into the veins of the business, and that's why the visibility of the cash, the shortages that might be there, understanding what are the short term, long term payments, as well as receipts that you are going to have, and the investments that you have made, how long they will take to actually fructify now because the scenario has changed. So all of that needs to be connected in a intelligent way, and that's where SAP comes into picture, wherein we have provided our customers with a complete package of understanding and encountering the liquidity situation, managing the forex flows, if there is any for a particular customer. And most of the Indian conglomerates are have some kind of forex exposure. Then plan for the liquidity, not just monitor it on the basis of the information that is there, let's say in the ERP, but also ensure that there is a plan in place to manage the liquidity, and put in those plans in such a way that you are able to execute against it. The fourth point is around, we have also helped our customers to understand what is their customer profile, what are the top customers that they need to kind of uh, engage with to reduce the amount of delay that might be there in the liquidity, or at least understand what will be the liquidity concerns with their customer payments, and try to bridge those gaps and identify those liquidity gaps and simulate them as well, so that they are able to take action on top of it. So this is done through some of our solutions around treasury, cash, and receivables management, which again integrates with multitude of external solutions to bring in that visibility. The second aspect that we have kind of interacted with our customers and helping our customers with is the entire close coordination. Uh, the information needs to be there for the close to actually go on smoothly. So access to real-time information from anywhere, traceability of the information and visibility of the information is one thing. Second is the close tasks need to be automated and, really speaking, reduce the amount of time that people are spending. Earlier, we used to have war rooms for the entire close to happen. The quarterly close used to be like a project for with a war room of people actually trying to counter multiple areas within finance. Now, with everybody working from their home, and most of the finance team working from their home, how do we coordinate between them? How can we have a automation which will help us in documenting, coordinating, and carrying out those close tasks? And that's where we have helped our customers in terms of streamlining the accounting processes, making sure that there is accuracy and control with every financial process, and the closed documentation is available at a single place and can be managed with the auditors in a very seamless fashion. So that is one part. Second is, for the business also, to get all the analytics on the basis of how they have performed, what are the things that they need to work on. That analytics is also part of the entire record to report process. So this is definitely something that customers have experienced and have leveraged SAP technology to make it simpler. Third aspect is, since everybody is now accessing your systems, whether it is SAP or any other system, from a remote place, from working from a remote place, it becomes even more important for you to have the highest amount of information security standards, and to also ensure that the identities are managed, and the right people are accessing your data, right? And at the same time also see to it that there is nobody who is trying to hack in or utilize that you opening up your systems for your own employees can act detrimental, and people can actually take advantage of it, and there might be cyber threats that might be looming for your software. So that is another piece where we have helped our customers to make sure that the application security is reinforced, right? We ensure that the people who are accessing through the right means. They are having tokens or OTPs sent to their phones before they actually access the system, so we understand that it is the right people who are accessing. We can manage temporary assignments and temporary role changes. We can manage and scale the remote workforce to actually have centralized authentication for multitude of systems that might be there. So this also is something which we have helped our customers with our access governance solutions, as well as access control solutions, in terms of ensuring that the privileges are according to what is designed. The fourth aspect, and one of the most important aspects, is that constantly changing situation on the ground. Various of our customers are subject to various markets, which some of the markets might be under lockdown, some of them might not be. uh, for example, there might be customers who are in rural, there are customers who are in urban, or towns. So how do we ensure that what is the plan of action for us in terms of business, get having a continued revenue stream as well as continued engagement with the customers? So that's where the constantly changing situation means that all the departments, whether it is, as Sunil sir said, whether it is maintenance, whether it is HR, whether it is finance, whether it is production operations, all of them getting together and actually working on a single platform to put a plan together, making sure that they are actually executing as per that plan, and even simulating those plans as to doing a multi scenario analysis, that if a lockdown happens for the next 15 days, if it continues for next 30 days, if there is no lockdown, what are the impact areas that you would have from a business perspective? Ensuring that if there are operations which are shut down because of the lockdown, whether they have cost impacts, whether they can change the type of product mix they are getting from the plants, and really doing that kind of analysis to come down to what is the best plan of action that can be there if a certain situation arises. And that's where we have our solution, wherein we can do a collaborative enterprise planning, and bring in all the plans together and make confident decisions as to how we want to react to a particular situation that comes in. uh, so this basically not only just allows us to plan, it allows us to then do the variance analysis, reporting on it, and it also gives us predictive capabilities to kind of understand whether, based on the current patterns, what could be the situation going forward. So the four topics that I wanted to cover and where we have helped our customers are basically around cash flow, making sure that the financial close happens in a smooth fashion, access is monitored, and the business is basically in safe hands in terms of the plan to action is documented and is available for everyone to actually analyze. And given a situation, this company can actually respond to the situation on the ground. With that point of view from SAP, I would say that everybody, I think, is trying to stay safe. At the same time, everybody is trying to garner and continue their business as seamlessly as possible, and SAP is definitely there to help you with these kind of situations. Thank you so much. With that, I hand it over to Murli and the panel discussion, uh, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Keval. Thank you for the very insightful presentation. And I also thank the erstwhile speakers to share their perspectives on how they're able to weather the storm as we speak today. Of course, thank you, Dun & Bradstreet, for setting this up. And I will kind of take this opportunity to welcome the esteemed panelists for taking time out in participating in the discussion. And of course, to the attendees for investing time in attending this event. Naina in the beginning did list out the various challenges that corporates are facing today because of the pandemic. So I would not be repeating all those per se, because we've heard them enough and we are living them as we speak. So the theme of the panel discussion is Finance 2025. But having said that, the recent disruption to the normal operations because of the pandemic has had impacts on people, process, and technology. Okay, and it's kind of given us an opportunity to, if need be, reimagine all these three aspects in terms of how they impact us on a day-to-day basis. Right, I'm sure you as CFOs would have given thought to each of this, and perhaps many of these aspects would have gone back to the drawing board for multiple iterations. With that in mind, I would broadly kind of try and do justice to all the three, I would say, parameters: people, process, and technology, as a part of our discussion. And towards the end, time permitting, we will of course try and take up questions that come on chat as well. So we all know, and we clearly understand that CFO as a persona, considering the fact that that profile has an entire visibility of the organization end to end, typically juggles between a couple of hats on a day-to-day basis. It could be an operator's hat, which actually means he's taking care of the routines and guiding his team in terms of what to do, what not to do. It could be a stewardship hat, where he's broadly kind of overseeing the fact that the organization as such is not going off course, and kind of whistleblowing if need be with the senior management. He himself being a key member of the same. It could be a catalyst where he's kind of constantly, or she is influencing his peers in terms of giving critical feedback, encouraging, discouraging if need be. And of course, the strategist hat. Okay? And in the recent times, we all know that the strategist hat has increased or has gained paramount importance. So with this in mind, I would like to probe the first question with Mr. Jayaprakash. Okay, in terms of how do you think since now everybody is looking at the CFO for guidance, and all the more in terms of how successfully the acumen of the CFO is able to help weather the storm and come out as winners if need be, and be more resilient. How do you think these profiles that we spoke about going forward in the short, mid, and the long term would emerge further? We've heard about CFO being a business partner, but would like to probe your thoughts on the same, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The CFO as a business partner and the strategic role of your CFO is the concept here. The main role of the modern CFO is much different from the past. So today the role of the CFO is under greater scrutiny, either internally or externally. But the CFO never faced ending pressure to cut the cost, growth, sales, growth, revenue, and ensure the control. The economic uncertainty increase the regulatory requirements, the financial restatements, and increase the investor scrutiny have forced them into spotlight. A role which was once compromised in managing the fund of the organization now takes a very different approach to managing the financials. The CFO role now encompasses the duty to ensure the long-term success of their organization by having effective oversight of not only financial but also strategy, performance, and risk. The role of a CFO is constantly evolving. In the past, CFOs frequently used to the static process to develop the budget, implement it at all level of the business. But today, CFO must be familiar with the new technology and the processes. And a CFO failure to do this cause the company fall began the revival without a clear path to the recovery. Hence, the CFO must be prepared to adapt the rapidly evolving the global market place. Although the CFO sometimes craft annual or biannual budgets, they now must mainly flexible budget. If CFO can graft easily and quickly modify business plan, they could help the company being keep pace in the fast-moving global market. See, going forward, the CFO must take a data-driven approach to the everyday operation. If the CFO can retrieve the actionable business insight, they can help your company determine the best way to invest its time and resource. These finance leaders also can empower the executive across a company with the insight they need to make the best possible decision. Sometimes some things that may help the business thrive for a year to come. So the collaboration may dictate the company's short and long-term success. If CFO takes the step to eliminate the departmental silos, they can make it easy for multiple departments to contribute the company planning process. In addition, the CFO prioritizes the collaboration. They can determine which technology and which process can help the bridge gap between the different business departments. So this way, the strategy role of the CFO should be adapted for 2025. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jayaprakash. That was quite, relevant and useful. While of course, I'm for some reason not able to see Mr. Datta and Mr. Kedia on the screen. But having said that, I would pose a question to Mr. Jitendra. Okay. Now, to become a able business partner, okay, and kind of advise business, sometimes the CFO is also required to, or rather, I would say many a times the CFO is required to liaise with external stakeholders. It could probably be bankers, it could be legal firms if need be, take opinions, it could be tax experts, tax planning experts, it could be advisory firms. Okay, the list is long. So, what is your perception in terms of probably going forward? And again, build a resilient kind of a business process and a finance community and the company. Do you think an inclusive process of having these external stakeholders on an ongoing basis interact and collaborate within the company would be the norm of the day? Because historically, it's been go to them if required. Would that kind of turn to be a bit more proactive? So, your thoughts on the same, sir?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, just to add to the background of what Jayaprakash just said, I just got off a meeting, with the program managers of our company. They are the customer interface, and they were generally saying that what is the role of the finance team, and I just with a straight face I said we are like the brakes, and they were like, you mean to say that you really want to stop the growth of the organization? And I was like, no, dude, just think of it. Would you drive faster if you have a pair of brakes, or would you drive slowly if you had brakes? I mean, the entire role of the finance organization is to give you a very, very solid safety net sort of a thing that can help you run a lot faster than in a classic organization where we are kind of the scorekeepers only. So that being said, right, I think the whole the whole collaborative approach of the external stakeholders with the internal team, I think it's been there for a while. Now we are going to see increasingly that being put in practice because if you think of it, right, internal controls, the oversight on the internal controls, the opinion of the auditors on the internal controls, and third-party experts. And as the organizations are becoming more and more wider and global, I think having these set of experts, at on-call basis, I think is really important rather than to really go to them when a policy needs to be framed and then doing so. We have set up for internal auditors. We have our cost accountants who are really part of day-to-day processes. Our internal control guys, we go to them a lot, saying that, okay, hey, you know what, we are looking at this intercompany transfer or intercompany processes. These are some of the related party transactions that we are looking at. Now here is the pricing formula that I have for my external companies. So we engage with them on a day-to-day basis rather than going to them and asking them to sign a checklist at the end of the year. So I think it's getting a lot more collaborative than we were used to, while we were relatively younger as accountants. So I would say that.
Valid point, sir. I think yes, real-time collaboration and being more proactive, okay, in terms of getting it probably right the first time. I'm sure, will at least ensure companies against any potential exposures. Now, one thing that's coming out very clearly, okay, and all of us, just as the erstwhile speakers did speak about, earlier telecommute was probably for very few, okay, and it was probably practiced in a country like India, maybe close to zero, okay, in almost all sectors. And today, it's all about telecommuting, right? So we kind of are not sure in terms of, okay, when is it that we'll get back to our office and normalcy would return. Likewise, an impact on the business process models, or rather the business model itself of a company. Okay, companies might come up with innovative models. I mean, companies that typically had maybe a one-time revenue kind of a perspective might think of maybe a recurring revenue, whereby move from maybe take the case of real estate. Okay, DLF is a premier player in the real estate sector. So instead of a one-time sale, probably even for non-commercial customers, okay, could we think of, if need be, a lease kind of a model. So I would here like to invite Mr. Naveen for his perspective on what is it that the recent disruption, etc., and the short, mid, and the long-term plans will have to business models as such, in real estate, and probably you can also give an opinion in terms of across industries. And to further add to it, sir, would you think there can be synergies between sectors? So, for example, a real estate player offering maybe a premises, okay, on a variable or a fixed term rental to end customers like me, along with, if need be, white goods, okay, duly structured as a part of a financing lease. So your thought on the same. So how do you think business models are likely to emerge going forward? Mr. Naveen, we are not able to hear you. If you could just I think we have Mr. Naveen, I think we have a bit of an audio issue. We are not able to hear you clearly.
He's not muted, is he? No.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Absolutely, sir. It's better, much better.
Hello.
Yeah, much better, sir. Go ahead.
Right. So sorry, I was having a little bit of a connectivity challenge, so I was not able to get into your question completely. So if you can just bear with me and repeat it again.
Sure, no problem. We understand. The question was around emerging business models in terms of maybe revenue models, in terms how would industries or sectors start engaging with their customers. So for example, an example that I was trying to quote was, say, real estate. Okay, real estate players who typically construct, if need be, flats and try to sell them to potential buyers. Considering that probably
Right.
investing in a flat in the short term could be a challenge, would they change their business model into a lease model where attract potential tenants in a fixed or a variable kind of a model, and then try and figure out if that can sustain, or probably that can even assume prominence going forward? So,
Right. So I'll just like to put in only, that's a very like fair question. One thing which I'll like to put in, like survival, it's always not the fittest or the most intelligent like of the organizations which are able to survive. It is the most adaptable one only which will see, and they'll be able to survive. So in these difficult, uncertain times when the whole business models are seeing changes, obviously the businesses have to reorganize themselves, realign themselves to be able to meet and provide to the tenants or to the customers the offerings what they're looking at. While the core of the business will still be what they look at, so the core offerings will have to still preserve to that, but the tweaking and twinings will have to happen so that you are able to hold on to your customers and keep engaging with them and keep being the stakeholders and advancing the organization's goal. Now, coming back to specifically the question which you asked with regard to real estate and changes around it in terms of offering to the customers, you have to look at the real estate business in three segments, which is like the commercial segment, the retail segment, and the residential part. So when it comes to the commercial offering to our like, and it is primarily a B2B offering. So in this sort of situations, you'll have to obviously have a very deeper engagement with your customers. And this has been a practice that we have been engaging with our customers in the past as well, trying to understand their requirements and to bring value propositions which is like available to them to carry out. On the retail side of it, obviously this uncertainty has seen a bigger amount of change in the impact. And as an organization, we were the first one to come out with a package to provide relief to our tenants. And going forward, it has been more of an engaging and partnering solution which we have offered to our tenants on the retail side. And that is what the market is looking at. So in terms of changing our business model, yes, it has to be more of a partnership model which will work the retail rather than like a model which we have on the commercial side of it. On the residential, while you say it is like an offering which is a big ticket investment for most of the people, and in tough times like this, it is difficult to make a choice whether they want to invest into a property. We are seeing some shoots in terms of like the some of the business models which are adapting in terms of like giving an alternate option in terms of a leased fitted out space or a service apartments and all. But having said so, it will only be constituting a small part of the whole business. So there'll be a small pie which will be like catering to this. But the bigger value proposition in terms of like giving us like a home and providing a home to the tenant or the customers is going to stay there in the long run. The businesses will have to align themselves for the short term, medium term, and the long term, and the value propositions has to be recalibrated. I think this is it.
thank you, Mr. Naveen, and I completely, I underscore your point on adaptability. Emerging business models and adapting to change. In fact, we've heard instances of even companies in the tire industry, which were early adopters, interestingly, on the IoT technology. Okay, which actually means I, as a consumer, if I typically go and procure a tire, I need to pay basis the number of miles I kind of use it for. Yeah, an interesting model, probably not thought of. Using this term adaptability, okay, that kind of becomes pretty important in the kind of technology that supports the processes. Even the processes need to adapt if need be to uncertainties and kind of be prepared for future such I would say challenges. Using that, I would like to invite Mr. Datta here. Okay, considering that he's from a pharma giant, and pharma is a highly data-driven kind of a company, okay, and data is the essence where it's not only required for research and development but also throughout its supply chain. So, what do you think? technology which is agile, which can, if need be, adapt to ever changing, I would say, business requirements, in terms of kind of ensuring information is available as close to real time, able to manage, if need be, structured, unstructured, etc. And as some of the earlier panelists did opine about an inclusive kind of a workforce where even outsiders are able to consume the data, give feedback. You are able to give feedback. How is that likely to emerge in the short to mid term? Okay, when we are talking about something that we are trying to prepare for a 2025 standpoint, do you think these are some of the important decisions that companies might start focusing on over the next maybe 6, 8, 12 kind of months? So your perspectives on the same, sir.
Thank you, Murli. Am I audible properly?
Very much, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think your question is quite apt and very relevant in today's world. Whether it is from the pharma or healthcare, or it is from any other industry, your question is completely relevant. Let me put it on the digital agility part, that an organization, particularly in case they are in the service sector like us in healthcare, or in terms of manufacturing like we are in pharma, the agility today in the current context of particularly after the lockdown happening and all this COVID pandemic happening all over the world, the agility has got a three different connotations. Point number one is that earlier we used to talk about that dashboarding, data on live, to the business is something we used to call it as agile organization. But today, I think after post-pandemic, the agility has become much bigger and beyond the organization. So that means my supply chain needs to be completely in sync with the entire paraphernalia of supply chain ecosystem that globally we have. So we need to get into there. In terms of the cash flow management, the recoveries means O2C and P2P, that entire channel needs to be completely in sync with what the bankers are offering, what my creditors are offering, what my vendors are offering, and needs to be live. So this is the one part of the agility. Your question is also very relevant that when it comes to, from that agility, how I free up the working capital. It's not technically only a CFO's point. It can be considered not at all a CFO point. It has to be a CEO point, right? The freeing up the working capital, I'm particularly a believer, we have done it in our organization, that working capital in some of the businesses can be negative, right? And that does not necessarily mean that one need to only pay creditors at 90 days and recover your debtors at 60 days, and then you say that, okay, I'm a working capital negative. No, I'm not talking about that. Really speaking, in today's world, in terms of technology, in terms of collection, it can be a completely automated and completely, I will say, a process where the cash flow balancing and cash flow linking up with your entire requirement can be automated. So this is the second part of the agility of the organization. And number three, which is probably this pandemic is forcing us to get into there, but it might take a little longer time, and it will depend on the digital maturity of the industry and the organization which we are speaking about, is in terms of the adoption of some of the technology. I'm not talking about the age-old talk last for at least 2 years. We are talking about RPAs. We are talking about many other things on that. I'm sincerely not. But in terms of the AIs and MLs, can it be very, very clearly and strategically interwoven into the system of your entire organization, right? Which can bring in, based on the other 2 points that I have talked about, which can bring in probably in future a predictability and of the revenue stream, predictability of the risk that the organization is taking, and on the other side, bringing in reliability of the working capital, bringing in reliability of the cash flow, and this can be done today. I'm not very sure that how much that is happening right now in this country or anywhere in the globe, but my understanding that probably 6 months, 1 year down the line, majority of the professionals, both in finance, technology, and the CEOs will be speaking about it. And this is the right time to get into there. We can speak about it a little later. I don't want to have into a monologue, but my feel is this is the new definition of agility, because this pandemic is not a financial disaster, right? It is nowhere is a financial trouble. It's as I speak it, it is a trouble for the mankind. So it's much beyond the financial issues. Thank you, Murli, for this question.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughts, Mr. Dutta. I think yes, your point is apt in terms of agility impacting every part of business, and it's an opportunity to, as you correctly said, free up working capital, and it can be put to better use if need be. And I completely take that point. You spoke about artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Of course, I mean, I will kind of try and get in Jitendra here. Now, when we're talking about, like say, a touchless process, okay, going forward, where we're trying to automate most of the routines, and especially when Mr. Jayaprakash mentioned about, he gave his thoughts about, CFO as a business partner. Naveen did mention about, ever-changing business models, etc. Probably technology adoption will be key, to kind of make this happen, which kind of puts many processes in a touchless kind of a mode to a great extent, where workforce is now redeployed on more constructive and more, if need be, strategic areas. So, Jitendra, how do you think, if need be, you could play your stewardship role effectively, in the sense, keep an eye on anomalies, keep an eye on deviations, keep an eye on, if need be, exceptions, and ensure that it's not against your standard operating practice, and you put it back in the on track. And again, like, the conventional definition of standard operating practice may also change. It's a standard adaptable practice. Okay, so your thoughts on how effectively technology can help prevention of, if need be, any waste or abuse, which can lead to an exposure.
Okay, yeah. So few things, right? We faced a challenge of a very different kind. We were shut down only for 3 days. We started our operations 3 days into the lockdown, because we got requests from the government to make some ventilators, and since we are in electronic manufacturing, we took it on ourselves to do something about it. So we and as it is always, finance was also part of the entire process. We said that we need to be part of all the business decisions that are to be taken. So interesting challenge that came up, right? At the beginning of the pandemic was really, how do we monitor people coming in and out? Not really to maintain the attendance. It's more for the safety and trackability of the people. So we initiated facial recognition. We had to do that, and we could not have the fingerprinting mode working because there were concerns around the safety. I'm just putting in the basic processes. I think that should set the context right. And so really, for us, it was more on being adaptive to the new normal, more than anything else. We just have to keep our eyes open. Facial recognition, so now, in middle of the pandemic, we were recruiting 500 people, because our processes, some of the equipment that we make are mission critical. They're used for healthcare and other applications. So really coming up with where we're identifying the risk, adopting our technology, experimenting with it. Facial recognition, did not work as we wanted. It was failing at multiple places. So adopting that, setting up rules that who had access to the data, all that, even tracking of our parts, because we had challenges on the usual process that we had around manual barcoding of the parts as they were moving through the assembly line. We just did not have enough people to do that. So setting up processes to really identify, because some of these equipments, we need traceability in them. So on the fly, really adopting to the new normal, making use of the technology, not being afraid of adopting something which seems radical at times. So all of these things I think are important, and I think earlier the finance organization is part of these changes, because at the end of the day everything gets reflected in the books of accounts. So better place it is to really understand the changes and how our reporting and everything else changes. It's important.
Perfect, Jitendra. Thanks for providing your insights. Now, in fact, I was just going through, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Institute of Internal Auditors, and I think they have their upcoming national conference next month. And the theme of the conference, interestingly, was virtual audits. Okay, or auditing in a virtual world, if I may, if I recollect it right. So I would like to, and internal audit is an important agency, within every company, okay, that kind of maintains checks and balances, and then CFO many times, collaborates quite frequently with the head of internal audit. Okay, I mean, in some companies that does roll up into the CFO's office. Okay, of course, duly respecting the independence. Okay, considering it's a third line of defense kind of a function. I would like to invite Mr. Jayaprakash for his views on what would be the expectation of the CFO. Okay, say from the audit team. Okay, whether it's a internal audit or an outsourced internal audit going forward, to kind of effectively kind of get the audits done. Maybe Jayaprakash, you could give your thoughts, and Naveen, you may just want to add to it, once Jayaprakash is done.
Thank you, Murli. See our role, right? CFO role. Actually, we are the bridge between the management and the board, right? So whenever we do conduct the audit committee, the internal auditor always appear in the board and explain the situation, everything. So their play is very crucial role in the organizations, particularly for the corporate governance framework, then internal process and controls, and some risk management, regulatory compliances, then obviously the financial reporting. See, they are also overall assisting to the board and the senior management to fulfill their responsibility towards the organization and its the stakeholder. Stakeholder could be the anybody, maybe creditors or the management and the banker, everyone. So internal audit function act as an intelligent agility tool available with the audit committee and board to discharge the duty provided to them by various stakeholders. So given its onerous duties, the board and audit committee heavily rely on the internal auditor report and as well as the assurance to the stakeholders. The core responsibility of the internal audit is to provide the assurance to the around the effectiveness of the process and the controls. So yet the scope of the assurance and that way the conducting will evolve day by day. The frequent communication with the stakeholder along with the regular process for reflection allow the audit team to continuously identify the enable areas improvements. That including the increasing the automation will make it easier to meet these demands. So the internal auditor is always how to observe their skills and the knowledge, so that can ask the right questions and identify the risk and the provide assurance to the broad range of issues. So you see that down the line next to in 2025, the internal auditor always based on the maybe technology base and the question raised by them based on the technology and the AI and RPI based. Because the process of the accounting and the financial closure also depend on the technology. So internal auditor also we are expecting as a CFO, we are expecting from the internal auditor to do the future audit based on the not only based on the policy of the organization, but also partner with the business with the capitalizing the performance and the success. So success. So the success which will maintain the sufficient level of the independence and objectively. So the collaboration is be there. So instead of simply telling the business what to do and pointing out the errors and the audit will need to explore the new ways of the assisting the business to in improving its own risk awareness as well as assurance. So that was I would like to point out for the internal audit.
Thank you, sir. Naveen, your thoughts, please, on the same.
Yes, so I agree with Jairam. So I think the businesses have changed, and they're for businesses and especially for the CFOs today. There are emerging risks. So if you look at the organizations today, the kind of risks one has to live with, it's reputational risk, financial, organizational, so it spreads cyber. So you can keep adding on to this list. And typically, the internal auditor's role has been more of an assurance and advice. So typically, they are giving assurances around the effectiveness of the internal controls and the lapses if there has been anything around that, and advising the management on as to how to build an effective control. So that's been the primarily the two, so to say, pillars of like internal audit. But now with the evolving businesses, there is a need, a dire need in terms of bringing a third element, which is more of like anticipation. So the internal auditors have to now become more than backward looking, they have to transition to a forward looking. And when I say anticipation, they have to help what Jairam spoke, or Jayaprakash spoke about, that they may not be only reporting as to what went wrong and why did it went wrong. Rather, they need to anticipate as to what could go wrong and advise management as to what can be done around it before it happens. So I think that's a big transition, and the only thing with the internal auditors can do is they have to increase their skill sets, capabilities, and they have to liaise and collaborate more with, because they are expected to be having too many expertise, which typically an internal auditor will not be having with itself. So they'll have to liaise and collaborate with technical experts, with IT experts. So across the domains, they'll have to reach out, get the expertise in house, and be able to deliver the services which is like expected of them.
Thank you, Naveen. I think very, very apt points, and I'm sure all of this will kind of further fuel the expectation of a CFO, to effectively perform as a strategist, okay, going forward, and as a business partner, because a CFO can then take well-informed decisions and perhaps even guide your peers in terms of what is right and what is wrong, okay, per se. Of course, we can go on and on. I mean, there are a lot of questions that I can post, to each of you, considering your collective years of experience. But in the interest of time, I would want to have just one last question to each of you. Probably I can call out the names so we can go in sequence. Now, of course, we are all working from home at the moment, or majority of India is working from home. And there'll hopefully be a day soon, maybe where people can get back to their office desks. So what is it that when your team gets back to the office, okay, maybe daily, a couple of times a week initially, and then eventually normally, what is it that you would want each and every team member of finance and accounts to keep in mind when they kind of get back to their desk? So Mr. Datta, if you can just give your I would say point here.
Well, I will first talk about a little more from an emotional side of it rather than functional, because unfortunately, apart from being a finance professional, I also belong to a healthcare and pharma company. So traditionally, we are a little more focused on the employee safety. So two things. One is that the people who are having an aged parents at home, having probably two young kids at home, or anybody who is, I will say, more prone to infections, I will sincerely suggest those people not to venture into office as much as possible and work from home. It will protect them as well as their family. Number two is that those who are probably the women, those who are in the family way, they should also avoid the offices whatever best they can do. So this is the first side of the work. But when it comes to the real workforce, trust me, I'm not very sure that whether we will be again going back to our old glorious days of working together in a few thousand square feet areas in the office, or so unsiloed work from anywhere in the world. I'm not very sure. And before coming here, I was thinking whether I have to put a mask on my face in the video or not. But doing that in the office for at least 8 to 10 hours regularly, and particularly those who are not that privileged to have a closed chamber. So I think we need to be a little more careful. While we are speaking about it, I'm really wonder that our so-called staff function who are going to banks and going to various institutions right now. It is unbelievable. I am from Mumbai. Some of the staff, they come to me. I'm in Bandra, and then they go to Thane for signing the page for someone, going to the Western Expressway 30 kilometers to Goregaon, and so many things they do. That is really a problematic. I think bankers must start accepting that fact that a physical signature moving to a more digital signature will be more important. That will help us. But I'm not very sure that whether we will be in the next 5-6 months we will be sincerely liking going back to office. I'm not very sure on that. Maybe this work is equally effective.
Completely agree, and thank you for the very sensitive, I would say, thoughts, Mr. Datta. Sincerely appreciate it. Jitendra, your 2 cents on the same, please. I mean, that'll kind of probably your reportees are listening to you, huh? So
I think so this is how I'm sitting in office, and this is how I sit most of the times.
okay,
So this is new normal for us. I think so I'll tell you what we did. Um, and as stupid as it sounds, like we were a lot more fearful 2 months back when we had maybe 1,000 cases coming up across the country. Then now, which is we are seeing 90,000 plus. Unfortunately, that's the way it works, right? We were super fearful. The first time when I came out from my home to for work, I carried my suitcase along because I thought that I'm going to just camp in my office, and exactly what we did. We had taken a resort, where we the key management people, because we just had to be here and we didn't want to carry any risk home. Uh, that was 2.5-3 months back. Now we are all coming in and going out every day, and we hired the entire staff at Manesar. 2,000 plus people are coming to work every day. By God's grace, knock on wood, we don't have any cases. What we did was really we set up very strong SOPs in place. We did experiment with those stupid tunnels, the sanitization tunnels. I realized that it's of no use, but some very basic, hygiene factors were put in that, in terms of maintaining distance, for sure, limited people in elevators, staggering the times for the cafeteria, encouraging people to bring food from home, but at the same time we understand. So we did provide some basic, we are providing basic meals for people. Constantly encouraging and rehashing every day that it is not normal. We are here because we have to be here. It's not here. We are here because it's a pleasure for us. Encouraging, even if while we are in office, encouraging Zoom meetings rather than in-person meetings, avoiding in-person meeting to the extent we can. Shop floor, we just have to constantly monitor for telltale signs. Isolating people whenever we see some sort of a threat. We had some cases. We didn't see a flare up. We had few cases. Some of the key management people also got affected. By God's grace, everybody is back to work, back in action. But that being said, I think we have accepted the new normal, which is our industry. If we have to make products that are mission critical, people are going to be on the shop floor. How we educate them, how we change their behavior, how we explain it to them that what is being expected from them is for their own safety, providing them a very safe environment, and really being with them. When our folks got infected, we ensured that everybody was provided the best care that was possible under the circumstances. Their families were taken care of. So all those things we did. I guess I'm from our company is from a little different situation than Mr. Datta's perspective. But we have learned to make peace with this whole situation. We are very fearful of it, but at the same time we are very careful about it. So we don't take it casually, but we have managed, or we have adapted, we have managed our workflows and processes to ensure that we do come to work every day and we go back safe, and we don't carry anything with us to the extent we can.
good. That's good to note, Jinder, and quite encouraging as well, the way you kind of managed it. And I hope, like, other companies who are kind of, or other attendees who are kind of listening to these perspectives are able to practice some of the, good things that you've done. Now, of course, I mean, in the interest of time, I think, Naveen, would you just want to kind of quickly put in your thoughts, please?
Yeah, just I'll put it in two lines. So while the organization is doing what needs to be done in terms of all the whole social distancing norms and other measures to be taken while for people who are coming into the offices, but from a team perspective, I think this virtual environment or more like coming back to office and start working here, it's very taxing and demanding on the team members. And it is very, very critical for all the team members to not only have the physical well-being, but it's more the mental well-being which has to be taken care of. In these
Very true.
trouble times, you have to ensure that you reach out to your team members, make them like feel comfortable. They all have their own demands, set of demands back at home when they come to offices and all. So it is very crucial for all the like team leaders to reach out to make those team members feel as comfortable as possible.
Thank you, Naveen. Mr. Jayaprakash, your thoughts on the same, please.
Yeah, actually, see that what Naveen and Jitendra and Data told that the same thing happened in my company also. So far we have about 1,000+ employees, out of which 600 with the cash labor and 400 for the worker side. So we do all the checking in the morning and the evening. So also we are doing the even if you have the meeting with more than 2 people, we do have the Zoom even within the office. Even within the office, also some department want to have the chat with me or other department. We will insist them to do the team meeting. So instead of coming and have the close meeting, all the things. Similarly, we do all the checking and the diagnosing. Actually we are into Chennai. Chennai is better than the other state now is coming down. So even the Chennai corporation also voluntarily come to our office and do the checking about some 250 employees. So no one have any sign on this diagnosis. So it's good for us. So like that we are taking all the initiation. Similarly, any support team like if finance side they want to work from home, we are allowing them. So because of the social distance and they come from long way, so we avoid that because now the everything available in front of their systems, everything. So we are avoiding to if they don't want to come to our office and do the things, so we are giving them the opportunity to work from home.
Very good, sir. Thanks a lot. I think quite insightful. And the reason why I wanted to put this question is because we represent multiple cities and of course different sectors. And these perspectives, I'm sure, would be very useful for people who are attending the session. There's one. I think we have about a couple of minutes more, but I think there's just one question from an attendee, whom I would like to, which I would like to pose here. You may raise your hands because I don't want probably multiple perspectives here because of the time constraint here. So the question is as follows: what is the future of corporate governance? It's an open-ended question, but is there any high-level thought that you may want to share? On this particular question that an attendee has posted. Okay, Naveen, you can go ahead. Yes, thank you for volunteering.
If you want to look at the corporate governance, now I think in these uncertain times, and when people have migrated to a virtual office environment and the organizations have started experimenting with this. So while virtual work was happening earlier also with the advent of say shared services or the BPOs and other things in outsourcing coming into play, but migrating to it at such unprecedented level, now they have brought in on their sets of challenges and risks. So I think the corporate governance, when it comes to that, it will in the fact go up only. So from a corporate governance, you need to be now increasing the radar, make it much more broader based, while it is will still be like on a virtual basis, but your processes, your designs, your control measures, both from starting from the board perspective as well as the operating team perspective, and the board and the operating management team, they have to be also like completely in sync with each other, because the communication channel between these two has to be enhanced. So the not only from the say, between the board and the operating management, your engagement is with the external stakeholders, be it the investor community, be it the like auditors, be it the internal auditors. So I think all of that will need to go up substantially.
Sure. Thank you, Naveen. I think with that, I will. I don't see any further questions on the chat. So I would like to kind of thank the panelists again for their very insightful, I would say, experiences that you shared. And in fact, I would like to end it on a lighter note. I mean, I remember one the WhatsApp video that was kind of floating, where a person who having served a company for his entire lifetime, has retired. And the very next day, okay, usual routine, he kind of, gets up, he dresses himself up, and he gets his wife to pack the lunch, and then he is in the bus stand, to take the bus. And then his wife is coming running behind him and telling him, "Hey, by the way, you retired yesterday. Okay, you're not supposed to go today to the office." So I think it's going to be the other way around. When normalcy returns, somebody will wake up and tell us, "Hey, today it's not work from home. You need to go to the office." Hopefully. Okay, fingers crossed. But nevertheless, thank you again, for your time. And I think with that, I would like to hand it over back to Keval for concluding the sessions.
I would like to actually thank each and every one of the panelists, Manas sir, Jaiprakash sir, Jitendra sir, and Naveen sir. Thank you so much for your time. Listening to you was just like, listening to, the stalwarts of finance, and really bringing together your wealth of experience has been truly beneficial to us, and I think beneficial to the audience as well. I would like to keep in touch with you in terms of such opportunities, as well as some of the things that your organizations are doing. We have a lot to learn from that as well. So thank you so much for your participation, and have a safe day, a safe week, and stay safe along with your organization. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank